When Eri and I met, Eri was what I would call polysaturated, had five
He had five
partners.
partners at the time.
Oh my,
And
lots
I
of
was in a,
processing.
yeah,
And calendaring. Lots of calendaring.
she's very good at it, to be honest. And I was in a monogamous relationship with a man.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Love, Laughs, and Lessons. And we are here once again with very interesting, awesome guests that we cannot wait to introduce you to. But before we do that, I want to thank Denise Rai, my co-host. I'm Dr. Frankie. We're also happy to be here with y'all.
Yes, so welcome back, everyone. We are here with Jaymin Patel and Eri Kardos, a dynamic duo based in Bali with their two children. So they're in Bali with their own two children, right? So not anyone else's. Don't know why I said it like
we
that.
just picked up some kids at the airport. They were really cute. They wanted a smoothie in Singapore. We said, come on. And then they were like, what flight are you going on? We said, come on over. And they're loving it so far. Yeah.
Jaymin is a self-expression coach, soul mentor, and the founder of the Fully Lived Method. He has a rich history of consulting for Fortune 500 companies, speaking at prestigious venues like Harvard Business School and the London School of Economics, and delivering popular TEDx talks. Eri, who's been with us before, so welcome back, Eri. The founder of ReLearn Love, LLC, is a distinguished love and relationship coach and best-selling author, known for her science and somatic-based approach that transformed the lives of leaders from sectors like tech and entertainment. She's also a 2025 TEDx speaker. Together, they host transformative retreats and exemplify deep conscious partnerships. Featured in Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Miracle of Love, their work blends emotional intelligence, strategic vision, and soulful connections, empowering profound change in relationships, careers, and communities. So welcome, Eri and Jaymin. We are like ecstatic to dive in. There's a lot of juice here, right?
Great. I feel so seen. I love that intro. I'm like, seen and loved. Yeah, nailed it, babe. Thank you.
So I would love to just jump off from how the two of you found each other and just and that, because I think there is so much amazing information for people to hear about what relationships can look like and the potential and all the interesting dynamics around that. So tell us how.
So pretty much we met on Tinder. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Yeah, just kidding. All right, so we're gonna get into a little bit of the juicy version.
Yeah.
So
this is the uncensored. Watch out.
Yes,
okay,
please.
So
That's what we go for here.
Yeah. When Eri and I met, Eri was what I would call polysaturated. Had five.
He had five partners at the time.
Oh my,
And
lots
I
of
was
processing.
And calendaring. Lots of calendaring.
She's very good at it, to be honest. And I was in a monogamous relationship with a man. Okay. So the way we got introduced was actually from my ex-girlfriend in business school who
was
knew
my
Eri.
best friend when I worked at Amazon.
Yeah.
So how do you both identify? Hold on, before we keep going.
Yeah. Thank you.
How do you identify? Are you queer? What term do you use? I mean, we have
Definitely
so many
queer.
different terms.
Yeah. Definitely queer. I absolutely love being in most rooms that I'm in, the queerest and the darkest. And I want that to change. But yeah, so I would say bisexual is probably the best term. Pansexual also can apply. And my overall kind of goal is to just be love. To love people regardless of sex, gender, age, race, weight. I love the human within, and the gender or sex of the person doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
That's the way that I look at it.
Yeah. Queer, pansexual, kinky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So keep going.
Okay.
Cool. So my ex-girlfriend introduced us and was like, hey, you should meet Jaymin. So, just a little indication of how my exes are. And she's really sweet. So she connected us. We had an initial chat. And a few years later, I was speaking in Seattle and I came to visit. And like I said, she was polysaturated. She thought I was just a gay man. And yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, like there wasn't. Neither of us felt like there was room for us in the other person.
Looking for a connection, a romantic or sexual connection.
Yeah. I mean, I just felt like, there's no space in your life for me. So, okay, right? Like, where would I fit? And I think similarly, I was in a monogamous relationship with a man.
Yeah.
So she was just like rooting you on, like awesome for you. So, but we had this really beautiful connective moment, like
so
a whole
sweet.
afternoon where Eri pretended to love yoga, that I was leading us through this really connected yoga and nurture dance sort of
He's
thing.
really cute. I was trying to impress him.
Yeah. She let me know later that she like hates anything yoga.
How I like yoga though, just to be clear.
There you go. So, so we had this really beautiful connection where it wasn't particularly like romantic, but we felt like, wow, you're super cool and you're going to be in my life for a very long time. Yeah. And, Eri being a relationship coach, as I was going through relationship challenges with my boyfriend at the time, I would actually call Eri and she'd kind of, speak to me about things. And we were chatting one time and she dropped this incredible bomb on me. This is one of the most beautiful things I've ever received. Okay, we're not dating yet. We're just supporting each other as friends. And
I had this wild experience where I had this super powerful feeling. And I was like, I need to talk to him. And I call him, I'm like, Jaymin, I think I'm supposed to have your baby. So if you and your partner ever need a surrogate, let's talk.
Like jaw on the floor. Like, what do you even do with that, right? I'm just like, amazing. So sweet of you. Thank you. It's like, wow, what an amazing message to receive, right? And so, as I said, I identify as bisexual or pansexual and also polyamorous and or open, whatever kind of term you want to use there. I don't particularly align to any one term. I just want to be me and I want to be loved. And I want to love as many people as possible in all the ways I can. So, but my boyfriend was gay, homosexual, and wanted monogamy. And he said, like, let's please do this first and like establish us and then go. But 6 months into the relationship, it became very clear that as much as we loved each other, one of us had to fundamentally change for it to really continue. And it was one of those breakups where we're in bed cuddling and just crying that this can't go on, but we know that it had to end because we just wanted very, very different things. And so, 6 months after meeting Eri, that relationship ultimately came to an end. And then I was on a speaking tour as a speaker. I was in South Africa and I get a message from Eri and things have been changing in her life.
Yeah. So I had a lot of shifts happen too, and I was less polysaturated, I had a lot more room, and I was still like stalking him in a nice way.
Yeah. So she sends me this message like, hey, I see you're speaking in San Francisco the same week I am, we should connect. And I'm like, okay, stalker. But cool. Yeah, I'd love to see you. So we make this plan to we look over our speaking schedules and there's this one Tuesday afternoon that we can have a date. And I say, or not have a date, but just hang out. And she goes, great. Then it's a date. And I go, wait. If this is a date, we're going to make this we're not just going to get lunch. We're going to get I want 5 hours with you minimum. I want to have lunch. I want to go to the park. I want to have an Uber ride that may not work out or we miss a train or, I want to see who you are, not just all dressed up on the other side of a dinner table. So anyone who's out there dating, have long dates where you have multiple places where you can interact and transition between. It's the best way to get to know someone. So we have this long date plan. And I fly back on the Friday before this Tuesday to New York City from South Africa, and something tells me fly all the way to San Francisco now. Go and see her talk. She's teaching at kink.com. So I'm like, okay, I feel like I need to be there. So I fly in. After flying 18 hours, I get on another 6-hour flight to cross country. I get in at 3 a.m, and the next day at noon, I'm at kink.com, ready with my camera, seeing her. Wow. So we got to lunch, and she's like, hey, tomorrow night, I'm going to be hanging out with this couple that I'm staying with. And it's just kind of the three of us, no pressure, whatever. But you're invited to come be, my date on this. And I said, great. And what was supposed to be this Tuesday afternoon became that Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. I moved my flight back on Thursday to get Thursday night with her. And I had to fly out on Friday for some other gig. And we were inseparable. We went to each other's speaking gigs. We went to, we just walked around town and did all these different things. And I was like, she's amazing. She can really keep up with me, and bring a lot to the table. And so Thursday night, right as she's finishing speaking, I have to jet. I go up to her, and this crowd of people is coming up to say thank you and ask her questions. And she turns to me, she goes,
Hey, will you be my partner?
and I go, sure, great, great. And I go, bye. And I remember I was in an Uber going across the Bay Bridge to Emeryville, where I was going to fly out of the next day out of Oakland. And we talked. I'm like, well, what does this mean? I was kind of new to this world. So I'm like, do I also have to date your other partners? Like, how do we do this? And she's like, babe, we get to create whatever it is that we want to create. And so we started hanging out, talking. I flew to Seattle to see her where she was living. And one morning we were brushing our teeth. And this is 6 weeks into dating. And I was like, it just hit me. And I was like, just so you know, I'm going to marry you. Like, it just hit me so clearly while we're brushing our teeth. And I go, how long do I have to wait before I ask you? And she's, of course, a relationship coach.
So I was like, this is new relationship energy. It's going to fade usually around 6 months. You have to wait at least 6 months.
And I go, okay. And so 6 months to the date, I proposed to her. I wanted my feminine to be honored, so I wanted a proposal from her. But we didn't propose for marriage. We proposed to get deeper into our relationship. So sharing finances, opening all the skeletons in our closet, like sharing very, very deeply and openly about everything, like putting everything on the table and saying, we're here, let's go full in, even the stuff that feels ugly and doesn't want to be seen, like, let's go there now. And so we went there, and then 6 months later, I officially proposed to her to get married in Belgium, because I was giving a TED talk there, and she was in Germany to lead an unconference on touch in Berlin. And so we met in Belgium, and I got down on one knee, proposed to her. She said yes, and we got married
a month later.
Yeah, like pretty much 4 weeks later. And so we were like inviting people to our wedding. And I was like, hey, I'm getting married. And most of my friends were like, to who? Right? Because like it'd only been a year. So not all of my friends had a chance to meet her. And then, so it was this wild ride. But we had this beautiful ceremony where we combined, we didn't care what the government thought about our relationship, and so the first year wasn't a regular marriage. We wanted it to be an honoring of our love and our commitment and our community. So we took Christian traditions, Hindu traditions, Celtic traditions, Native American traditions, and we just put together this, what I can only call a vortex of love, where everyone was crying, and it was just like this beautiful meeting of souls. And that was our first wedding together.
Our first wedding.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we get married every single year. So we've had 9 weddings.
And this year will be our 10th wedding.
Yeah.
And we already have a beautiful plan. I'm so excited.
And every year it's different. Sometimes it's a Hindu ceremony. Sometimes it's a Islamic ceremony. Sometimes
we got married. Our 7th wedding was on top of the world's largest Buddhist temple.
Yep. Our 6th wedding was like during the deepest disconnected part of our relationship, where I just went to her and I'm like, babe, we just need to like let everything in this relationship die and create it again. And so we actually did a relationship death ritual. We just made it up. And I highly recommend people to do this, but we ultimately went through like talking about everything in our relationship that needed to die, that needed to change, patterns, stories from when we began that weren't serving us anymore, and like really allowing that to burn away so that we can step into the unknown of what was next together.
It creates so much space.
Yeah.
So
my
much
gosh.
space.
Yeah. So we're always creative. It's never on the same day. It's not an anniversary celebration. It's literally every year at some point in the calendar, we just have this feeling come through that we want to be remarried, that like we're ready to recommit. And that's what conscious relating means to us, is that we want to commit to each other again. And so we find a creative way somewhere beautifully in the world to do it.
And this does, I want to be clear for our listeners, and that doesn't mean you're exclusive. It means that you're committed to it. So help us understand the nuance there.
So we say that we do conscious relating. And for us, that means that we really tune into where are we at as individuals and as a couple, and how do we lean into whatever's there and create a sense of freedom and safety for us to each be ourselves and still be loved. And that requires a lot of communication, a lot of vulnerability. And so we've taken many different forms. I mean, we've been monogamous during certain periods. We've each been celibate at different times.
Yeah.
For a period of time, I was momogamish, where I just want to be focused on being a mom, because we both knew we wanted to be parents, and we started having kids right away, and it was amazing. But I was like, I just want to focus on being a mom, and that was so beautiful. And then we've also had many lovers at one time, or one lover, each for years and years and years. And we have very different erotic blueprints. And so for both of us, it's like, how do we go deep into whatever the blueprint is we want to talk about, or connect with, and that feels so powerful for us, and it allows us to learn to speak each other's blueprints differently, and also be with people who are more dominant or more natural way of connecting. So for me, I'm very sexual kinky. Jaymin is energetic sensual in terms of like where we came from, and now we're both shapeshifters, so we can play with all these different worlds and connect with people in so many different levels, which we would not have gotten to like really learn to explore had we not said, wow, this is edgy, this is a little uncomfortable. How do we navigate this together? And then going out and learning so many different modalities and working with coaches and working with therapists and be like, okay, we're really in this. How do we prioritize us? And then from that space, we go out as a team and really build that trust.
Yeah. The day before Eri and I's first wedding, she shocked me. And we were sitting down, somebody had gifted us these beautiful scrolls. So we were sitting down and we were writing down our vows on these scrolls so that we could read them in the ceremony. And of course, me being this kind of romantic, I was like, and be together forever. And she's like, wait, babe, I can't promise you that. And I was like, why are we getting married then? Like, I was freaking out. And she's like, babe, like this idea of together is great, but like, that's actually not something that I can actually promise to you. It's like, we don't know what's going to happen, and I'm committed to you and I want to be with you through everything. But at some point, if it's not working, or we're not really supporting each other, or it's not good for us, it doesn't make sense to be together just to be together. And I'm like, well, what are we committing to here? Why are we even having a ceremony? And she was brilliant. She said, like, we want to commit to be, serving the highest self in the other. And so our commitment really is to grow together. And every year, the reason we recommit is like, are we really that person who is the best for the highest self in the other? And we really assess that. And we really spend a lot of time looking at our relationship as its own entity. And how is it serving me? How is it serving her? What does it need? What does it need to give us? And so, we're in a relationship, but then our relationship itself as an entity is something we're tuned into. And, like 2 years ago, for the first time ever, I just had this thing of like, I need to be monogamous. Like, that's what I want. And so, at one point having like 3 other partners, outside of Eri, I went into another swing. That was just like, what feels right to me is being monogamous. And she's like, well, do you want me to be monogamous with you? And I'm like, no, like, this is what feels right for me. Right. And so then at that point, it was like one of us was monogamous and one of us was not. Right. And it's also flipped the other way. And so it's really an interesting journey, because both of us have had partners for over 6 years, right, that we've been connected to outside of our committed relationship. And so, there's just all these forms that this energy takes. There's been points where, she kind of mentioned we were celibate. It was just kind of like we were in so much of our own shit, our own growth, that it was more of like, not like, oh, I'm going to be celibate right now. It's like not roses and ponies, right? We were like, oh my God, I'm going through so much stuff. Are you okay over there? Yes, I'm kind of okay. Are you okay? Okay, yeah. Well, I love you. And at some point we're going to have energy to commit, because we're just deep in our own, like dark nights of the soul. So, so we want to be here. We love each other. We see ourselves growing old with each other, but we also know that if we're not right for each other, we'll have a relationship. And what that does is it keeps us on our toes. It incentivizes us to grow. It incentivizes us to always pursue coaching and, listen to podcasts like this or read books. Like, we're always reading books together, right? And then like reading it, like, oh my God. And it happens to come at the right time for what we need. So we're very committed to growth. And that's what conscious relating means to us. And sometimes it's poly, sometimes it's monogamous, sometimes it's something in the middle, but we create it.
Yeah, and that could mean emotionally intimate with somebody, physically intimate with somebody. It takes every different form. And since we love humans in general, it always looks different and is beautiful, whatever's unfolding.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing, and it's unbound. And I think that's what I love. And that's what I see. Eri, I'm loving the way that you're looking at him. I'm just like, I want to marry you. This is amazing. And I'm pretty sure that most people are like, what the heck are they talking about?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, what is going on, right? But this is two people who love themselves and love one another and really want the highest for themselves and for the other. So there's this check-in, which I'm thinking is the marriage, like this recommitment to being intentionally with you is the marriage, right? And then this commitment to the higher self, which is all the other things that you're doing together. I think it's amazing. I think is my assumption that it's not easy.
It's not. No.
Yeah. That before you arrived on this level, there's lots of work and probably lots of work that you're still doing, but lots of work to get there. Eri, for you to even say, I think I'm supposed to have your baby. Like I want to have, like, not think, right? You were like, I'm going to, right? Where were you? What was happening? How does this come through?
Yeah, it was a weird feeling, but I have really incredible intuition. And I've learned over the years to trust it. And even if it doesn't make any sense to me at all, but I just have this really powerful feeling of like, I'm supposed to have this man's baby. I
And moreover, the thing about Eri is she will speak into the thing that's not being said. Right? And so when we were talking about our vows even, and she was just like, no, that's actually not authentic for me. And was willing to say that and bring me into that journey. Like she is magical in this realm. Like, I don't know how, but like we'll go make plans to go hang out with someone, and then she'll just be like, yeah, no, it's a no for me. And I'm like, but they're our friends and they want to see. She's like, I hear that. And, like I have to have a conversation with them, but I'm not wanting to go to dinner. And she'll just honor that truth. And I grew up as a people pleaser, overachiever. Like that's my story. So, the funny part is, and I always say, like, if I didn't marry Eri, I would be divorced by now, right? So, when we first got together is when Eri's book came out about relationship agreements. And before that, I mean, for years she was doing work as a relationship expert or sex positive educator. So even when remember I mentioned we had that 6-month proposal to each other to go deeper. Part of her stuff was like, if you want to go deeper, you actually need to learn these tools. You need to learn these communication tools. You need to learn these parenting tools because we both want to be parents. Like, you need to actually go and learn these tools and commit to using them. And we actually had a fight about it. And I was just like, who talks like this? This is so silly. It's like, we're not robots. I want to be a human with you. And then I used one of these tools in a conversation with her. And she just, like, it melted away the anger and the frustration into the deeper vulnerability, sadness. And I'm like, why doesn't everybody talk this way? So, there's a lot of, like, Eri really led the relationship so much at the beginning because she had done so much of this work. She was just a geek on relationships and sex. She just loved it. And she really invited me into that. And that's what the signature of our whole relationship has been, is that we're always constantly growing because, you're navigating something that takes a lot of vulnerability. You're moving through jealousy, insecurity, like similar things as any poly couple. But then at the same time, it's all of my patterns of, like, maybe pulling away or getting one up or one down. And we're just looking at all this and it's like, wow, how do we stop these patterns? And also we're very different. We're
very different.
When I met her, I was like, you are just me in a hot woman's body. Like, oh my gosh, like, let's make babies. This is going to be great.
And so easy.
It's so easy. And then we find out, like, like I'm typically more anxious attached. She's typically more avoidant attached. Like it's just like the communication that we have, like the way we were raised, the family of origin, the values, completely at arms with each other, right? And so then we're moving from judgment to love, right? And it's a tender journey, right? And we've had all the ups and downs. Like I said, it's not roses and ponies. It's challenging, but we are so committed to our growth. And there's a strong love that we both have for each other that we're like, fuck, we're doing this. We're facing this, And it's hard. And thank God for a community of people and professional coaches who support us. Thank you. Yeah.
So does this ever come up? I'm sure it has on your journey in some way, as you're talking to so many different professionals and people are seeking support and guidance through you. The idea of having multiple partners can sometimes seem like a way of avoidance of intimacy.
Mm.
between the two
Yeah.
of you, where you're right, it's so hard to be fully vulnerable, fully present, just even with one person, let alone multiple people. So how do you, I'm just going to throw that out there and,
Yeah.
would love to hear your thoughts.
I think it's very, very true. And we have this commitment to each other that anything that we are doing outside of our relationship is always in honor or support of our relationship.
Yeah.
So if there's any time, and we're always tuning in, right? This is the thing. We're really constantly tuning in. We have like weekly date nights, right? That we just plan as a ritual. We're like, okay, we're doing this. We're committed to just spending time alone without the kids, but not about business, and just talking about what's on our hearts. And so we're always like taking care of each other in a way. Like that's our commitment, that we're not doing this as escapism. We're not doing this as a proxy. Can that happen or show up sometimes? Sure, right? Like subconsciously, unconsciously, potentially. But we're pointing that out. We're like, hey, that thing, it kind of hit me this way and I didn't feel taken care of. And we move through those things because they come up,
But the thing is, it's not always around being with other people. It's
Right.
anything that we would call a third, right? So it's our careers, it's our kids, it's our hobbies. Like I am a passionate kizomba dancer and I go teach at festivals. It's all of these different things. It's where we have to be very conscious, very picky about how we are managing all these different aspects of life and bringing it back to us. And we do choose hierarchy. We do choose to put us as the center, and then from that place make team decisions.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I've gotten jealous of her passions, so as a kizomba dancer, when she goes to these festivals, the dancing starts at like 8 p.m. and goes until 4 a.m. Okay. Or even, I don't know, sunrise maybe.
At a festival, you start dancing around 10 a.m. and you stop the next day at 7 a.m.
Okay, yeah. So right.
Yeah.
So imagine like she's dancing all night. Now when we're at home, right, at 9:30 p.m., she's a pumpkin. So I want to like initiate intimacy. I want to talk. And she's like, babe, I'm literally, and I'm like, oh, but when you go on your festivals, you have all this energy, right? So it's not even about a person. It's not about another partner. It's like, how am I feeling replaced or deprioritized, even by your other passions? Or when we have a date and I'm like, oh, I need to finish this email, and I'm like doing that and I'm not actually putting that down and supporting her, right? So whether it's other partners or whether you're monogamous, this shit shows up. Right. And it's kind of like, again, subconscious or unconsciously playing out, but we will catch it and we'll do the vulnerable thing, which is, and I learned this from Eri, is to speak into what's happening, like the ouch, like, hey, babe, this whole thing feels like an ouch. And I'm not great at it. Like, I'll come to her and be like, yeah, but when you go on your festivals, you have all this time. You don't have time for me. And she's like, is there an ouch? Is there an ouch there? Can you start with the ouch? And then I slow down, I tune in, I move through all my blended, triggered layers, right? And then I say, oh God, there's a big ouch. I feel abandoned. And then she's like, thank you. Like, I can be with that, right? So that's Denise, that's like the years of work, right? Of like unblending and recognizing the trigger patterns, coming to the communication that can actually work, right? But it's like,
and finding these amazing tools, because it's not like I'm perfect. I am far from it.
Yeah.
And what's great is I had all this capacity in the beginning of our relationship to teach him all the great tools. And then I stopped using them for a while. And he learned them and like retaught me, right? And brought me into it because it was so vulnerable. And it's one thing to like know the tools, it's another thing to use the tools.
Yeah.
And you have to be really committed to doing it together to get good at it. So you're not just trying to pull out, oh, I think we know how to handle this. There's a worksheet we learned somewhere, and when they're in the middle of conflict, we had to really learn how to integrate it into everyday life and then model that for our kids. Our kids see us fight regularly, but our fights don't look like what most people are thinking about, right? Our fights don't look like yelling and screaming and blaming and shaming and attacking. We get to model what it is like to take responsibility for our emotions.
Yeah. I read somewhere it's like, if you won't fight in front of your children, then you don't know how to fight. Like, you should fight in front of your children so they understand how to handle conflict. But most people don't learn how to handle conflict, how to fight in a healthy way. And so they're like, okay, kids, go to your room, or they'll fight in the bedroom late at night. It's like, we will move through the difficulty in our relationship, which we have the same as everyone. Like it's no, but we want that to be modeled for our children, right? We really want that. And like fights that we have that are like the regular couple fights that everybody would have, that would be like days of like cold shouldering. Like, no, I don't want to have lunch. I'll make my own, right? Like that sort of cold. Like we can actually move through those multi-day, what used to take multi-days in like 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? We can move through the pieces because it just over time with practice and catching the patterns and unblending from that triggered little self, right? We've found ways to like, either lean into each other, call each other forward, take our space, whatever is needed so that we can actually come back into harmony. Yeah.
It shows, right? Like the commitment to each other, to the process, to acquiring whatever skills are out there, these tools, using them, practicing, mastering them, evolving together as a couple. That's what I'm hearing, that it's you both have the intention of working through and sticking in, like committed. So you're each other's primary. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. And how old are your kids?
Oh, now
they'll be 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So almost a decade of being parents.
Yeah.
And are you in a
part
community?
Of that was 2 under 2. What was
Say
that?
it again?
Part of that was raising 2 kids under 2 while traveling the world.
And having a YouTube channel. So we were in a new city or country every 4 to 7 days for a good period of time.
With 2
under 2.
Like a double stroller, 2-car seat. Like
Crazy.
It was
wild.
Yeah, it was insane.
So would you say your community, your friends are also practicing similarly in terms of polyamory, ethical non-monogamy, or?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a mix. I think it might skew. I think in general today people relating are skewing more towards polyamory. I see more of like people seeing that as both a valid option, maybe even a healthier option for them. But we also have,
or maybe monogamish.
Yeah.
It's like, here's our.
Yeah, but we do have friends who are definitely enjoying monogamy, and that's their path. And we don't think one is better than the other because we're also all of those at some point in time, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think we're also very careful to not say we're polyamorous because that means something to people who are polyamorous, and we're not that label. We're not that all the time, or open or monogamous. Like none of those labels is what we kind of want to say, okay, this is the flag in the ground. It's like we're cycle through what feels alive for our relationship in that moment, right? And who's around us and who are in, what's the situation of where we are and what makes sense, So I think people are moving more and more towards consciously choosing what feels right for them. And I think that's the most beautiful part.
What do your families think of this?
Yeah, I don't think they really actually care, right? Like they're very happy that we're happy, and they're not like inquiring. They're not, and they're not like tell us all of, they're our parents, right? So I think some of our like cousins or more like family friends are like more interested in it and inspired. But in terms of our family, like they're more excited, like our parents. I think they're more excited to see our kids. They're more excited to just like know we're happy and hanging out, right? And we're also not like bringing other partners or really, it's just not relevant to them. Like they just want to have a connection with us, and in that moment, that's what we do, right? And maybe if we were living, in the same hemisphere or the same city even or the same country, then maybe it would be different, right? But we're in Bali, we're also in a very different place where like it's not everything here translates when we come back to the US and see our family or when they come here. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, in my family, we a long time ago set some healthy boundaries that we don't discuss religion, sex, or politics for everyone's well-being. And we just honor that. That is the right level for us.
And everyone plays by the rules.
Yeah, because it hasn't, like, we've all had our own sneaky way of trying to get around those rules, and we've all found out that it's not the right dynamic for us. So we've agreed to, this is really good for us. Let's honor this boundary.
Yeah.
And that's mostly between me and my parents. My siblings, they ask me everything. We talk about everything.
Yeah.
So do you feel like people are more so curious and interested in better understanding how you're doing what you're doing, this atypical, not like less traditional way of...
Very. I would
Yeah.
say multiple times a week, people are just like, how do you do it? You know, with kids, with loving each other, and also being open at times and having other partners and like, yeah, there's a
Running
lot of
companies.
yeah, there's just a lot. Yeah, you know, it's like our, you know, and we also have time for ourselves, right? So like, we want time away from each other. We want time with each other. We want time with other partners if we have other partners. And then we also want time with the kids and we have a pet. And then we also have teams that help us run our company. So this is a lot of relationships that we are managing. And we're a little bit insane, you know, in the sense that we want to be at our edge. And we've been chasing that together for 10 years. So you can just imagine where that's brought us, right? Where it's like as hard as it has been at times, we want to grow together. We want to be at our highest selves. And so we uplift each other to push through those times and to use the tools and to learn the lessons and to do the hard work. Like unblending yourself when you're triggered, my God, is that the hardest work I think any human can do, right? And it's like, and to do it solo, not even be like, hey, okay, I need to go call my coach and walk me through this. Like, I'm going to go take 10 minutes in my room and like unblend, right? And like catch that I need to even do that, or to catch in each other, like, hey, you know, so there's a lot of pieces there, but I think that's the fun part is we have this high bar that we know it's a lot of work to reach, but we're willing to do that work. And other people recognize that. And that feels really good, because I think if what we are doing can create a ripple of inspiration for others to say, even some of that sounds amazing, you know, and I want to move in that direction. That's it. It's not a 30-minute webinar, right? That got us here. It's literally committing every day to doing the work, continually growing, being around people who we also admire, and just learning and having a support network of not only friends that we can call. Like I have friends who are tracking our entire thing, right? And are some of the reasons we're still together in those tough moments. Yeah. And so does Eri. And then we also have the coach. Like, what a brilliant world that we live in today, where we could have a disconnect and then within a week get on a call with someone who literally reconnects us. And we pay them a few $100, and it's like like, wow. Like, isn't that just insane? Our parents didn't have that, right? So yeah, I think it's a really cool world that we live in.
Well, I think you're creating that, right? It sounds like your purpose is shared, and you have found each other in this like-minded way, right? You have a similar intention. So you're also seeking out supports to help you be successful. Like, I do think we have to reach outside of ourselves from time to time to get support, acquire tools, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're doing it.
And I just want to say one more thing about the support. It's just so important. Not only does he have people he goes to, and I have people that I go to, but that we are intentionally choosing people who will cheerlead our relationship, right? They'll empathize, then validate all the things we're going through, and then they'll call us on our bullshit.
There you go.
And play devil's advocate and say, okay, now, what was your role in this situation? It's like, oh yeah, which I just don't think a lot of people have, and they don't see that modeled in movies or anything. It's like we go whine to our friends who are like, oh, he's such a jerk. Why are you with him? Yeah. You know?
Which isn't helpful.
Yeah. That's right. So for us, I think it's also being really
intentional
about like who's on our team and how are they really supporting our family.
And the funny part, I think, is, when in year 3, we're like, remember year 1? Oh my God, we were like so confused and lost. And then like in year 7, we're like, remember year 3? We were like so confused and lost. And now we're at year 10. We're like, remember year 6 when we had our relationship death ritual because we were so frustrated? Like, look at us now. And I'm sure in 4 years, we're gonna look back at year 10 and be like, remember on a podcast, we thought we knew it all? Because it doesn't end. I firmly believe that this journey does not end. There will be deeper parts of myself that I need to love. And the only way for me to find how to love those is to vulnerably realize how I judge that in her, love her, and then allow that to move back through me, right? This is like the journey that we're on. We grew up with parents who did their best. They did not have Google. They did not have Esther Perel, Stan Tatkins, any
Dr. Frankie.
Dr. Frankie. Like, they didn't have this podcast. Like they did their best, but we are imprinted with really a loving yet imperfect imprint of what love is. And what Eri stands for is her whole company, ReLearn Love, right? And that's what we're doing. And we're doing our best with our kids, and it's not the best. We're doing our best. And so I don't think this journey ends, and I think that's exciting. I don't think that there's, this kind of rugged river and then like a lake and you're just floating in that lake. I don't think people would like that. They would get divorced. They would just be like, I'm done. This is boring. So we get to kind of keep growing. And I think we know that, like, we deeply understand that as good as we think we are at like getting through a fight that would take us 5 days and 20 minutes, it's like we're still in 20 minutes of disconnect. We're still triggered by something in the other. We're still mirrors more deeply to look into our own soul and a part of us that wasn't loved, and the deep anguish that we feel about how that wasn't loved in us. And I mean, there are moments I'm just crying like a baby in Eri's arms because she's loving parts of me that were hard for me to look at, right? Or the other way around. Like, this is what love and relationships is to us. Is that this journey to continually become whole through the mirror of each other. And it's not over yet, even though we've done 10 years of deep hard work, which might sound exhausting to people, but honestly, it's kind of fun.
It's really fun.
Especially once you move through the part of the reconnection. I read somewhere this meme that marriage isn't about happily ever after or forever. It's about disconnecting and reconnecting so many times and choosing each other through commitment that you find trust in each other. And I think that's very true for our journey, is that we've been through all this shit and we've come back to choosing each other. And in that, we feel trust. And the more trust we feel, the more safety we create, or we create. And in that safety, the more freedom we enjoy. And as we create more freedom, then we're also faced against new edges that then test our safety, that bring us closer. And I mean, it's a beautiful,
so good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful kind of this journey to be on.
Yeah. How do your children understand it? How do they know about the type of relationship
Our
that you
kids
have?
ask so many great questions. And in Bali we drive motorbikes, and so I have just found that on so many of motorbikes they'll just open up these random questions that are super profound. I remember it was in 1 month. It was like the wildest month. It was last year around April. We just, in like a period of 3 weeks, we had every question from like, well, what is self-pleasure? And what are the dogs outside doing when they're mounting each other? And is that what humans do? And and then what about, so we know that you go on dates with other people. What does that mean? And so like getting to really talk about all these different things and pull it back and share our meaning and ask them, what does it mean to you? What questions do you have? We talk very openly with them. And it's been really interesting because now they're at the age where they're starting to their friends are starting to talk, and they're going to be learning about how the body works and everything. And we have to just remind them, hey, like, different families teach different things, and we need to leave it up to their parents and the school to decide what's appropriate. Please don't teach everyone what you've learned at home.
Yeah.
And I think the coolest thing would be for them to go over to their friend's house and be like, wait, your parents are monogamous? What? That's weird. Wait, your parents are straight? What?
What?
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Right? And we feel really empowered by the decisions we've made because we get to be fully expressed in it. And we're not just taking a prescription from what we were told by our religion or our parents or society. And all of those things for some people are true, right? So no shame in that. Like, those things are true for some people. For us, they're not. And so we're creating a way where that is who we get to be, and we're fully owning that. And so the question that they get to ask, it's and we're not like bringing lovers over to the house, it's not like in front of them. But they understand.
We do have lovers who hang out, and we don't put our sex life in front of them, right? So they know people and they trust them. They know who they can go to for support.
For years, come to birthday parties.
Friends, there's a lot of touch positive environment that creates a lot of safety, but we're not here to flaunt our our personal lives behind closed doors with our children.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm
Yeah. So
hearing
it's
like
it's
you've got
it's
these
a balance.
boundaries.
Yeah. And as they get older, things mean different things to them. Like they kind of understand things right now in a different way. And as they get older, they're going to understand it in a different way, right? So there's layers to the whole thing.
Yeah. I remember one night we have these great conversations at bedtime before the lights are out and all the questions start really coming out. And I remember just one night one of them asked like, Mom, who do you have a crush on? And I'm like, who do you think? And they're like, Dad. I was like, yeah, I have a huge crush on Dad. And I'm like, anyone else? And then they knew exactly who my other partner was. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, and I have a crush on him too, you know? And then what about Daddy? Oh yeah. And who? And like we were able to they already knew, right? It was just this confirmation of like we are this bigger thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Like, I just think you're an example of, I think we're taught models and we feel like we need to follow that model, and you're stepping out of that model and you're like, I'm going to explore this and I'm going to be open about how this, what this is like for us, and people can learn from you. Like, I'm so grateful that you're willing to come on the show and talk all about, like, I asked some difficult questions. I think it's exposing, right? Like, I'm thinking, what are listeners wanting to hear more about? And you're like, sure, here we're, you know what I mean? So open. So I really appreciate that transparency, because we know monogamy and exclusivity isn't really working, right? The divorce rate is over 50%. It's been they're like, it's around 50%. It's been, that number's been stated for decades now. I'm like, no, it's higher than that. You can feel it,
sure.
right?
Especially after a child is born in a relationship.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of also that's not being spoken about as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think for sure it's not fitting as well as it has before. There are a few exceptions. There are people who are monogamous who are doing great, but they're becoming more and more the exception.
Yeah.
And I think the trend is, just like understanding like desire and commitment, and what are the options? And I think we're here to kind of create our own, what we call and venture, right? Like we know there's an and between us, and we get to go on this and venture of like seeing, well, how does that and play out? What does that look like for us? What is that and? Instead of saying this is the and we have to do that and you're committing to, it's like, no, there's an and here, and let's make an and venture out of this and see where it takes us.
Yeah, love it. So, Jaymin, Eri, how can folks find you? If they want to work with you, hear more of what you have to share and say.
Yeah, the easiest way to find me is by going to my website. It's relearnlove.com. And then I'm also on Instagram as Coach Eri Kardos. And I've put out lots of free resources for folks, and I have programs and a singles program, and I work privately with couples and people in any relationship structure and singles, and so it is a lot. And then Jaymin and I got to record my book, my best-selling book called Relationship Agreements. We recorded that together in an audio book. It's right there in an audio book form, maybe a year and a half ago. And it was so fun to do together. So you can find an Audible. Yeah, super fun.
Yeah, and everything of mine is Jaymin J Patel. So jayminjpatel.com. Instagram is I am Jaymin J Patel. I'm on Facebook. So if you learn how to spell my name, you will find me. And it's exactly what you think it is. It's J, then Min, then the letter J, and then Pa, and then Tel. So you can figure it out. But I'm sure it'll be dropped in the links somewhere. But there's a variety of things. We also we have literally stacks of free resources. Yeah. Like you can just come and binge on our content for quite a while without paying us any money, but just really getting a lot of downloads. We go live on Facebook. We have master classes that are just for, there's a lot of stuff that we put out over the years. We've been doing this for a long time. Yeah. So there's a ton to dive into. And if you can't find it or anything, just message us and start there. Just start into getting the juice, getting the transmission, getting the tools, all that. Yeah.
Getting the truth.
Yeah. My right arm. Love on the other. What can you see?
Beautiful.
Love on the other.
Really, thank you too so much for paving a different path. So appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you to our listeners for being here with us today. We're so grateful for you, and we will see you all next week. Kisses, hugs. Take care of yourself.